I spent the majority of my life just kind of denying that that was real. I couldn't meet eyes with myself in the mirror because I knew what I had done. So I don't even know where I need to start with this, so we're just gonna roll with something. So growing up, I always knew, like I always had a knowledge about the demonic. My mom was in ministry with that kind of thing, and just due to different life circumstances, I always knew that the demonic was real, and I was really, really petrified by that. I didn't necessarily get told that I had power over that kind of thing. Like I was told, oh, well, you can pray and everything will be better, but there was not a lot of teaching, especially in the church, on the demonic or the authority that I hold over the demonic. So I spent the majority of my life just kind of denying that that was real because I didn't want it to be, because I was very, very afraid by it. I very much remember having my first encounter with the Lord. I was woken up in the middle of the night and I could just feel his presence all over me, and I spent basically an hour as like a 6-year-old kid in the top bunk of a bunk bed begging for salvation from the Lord because I could feel his presence all over me. So I know that I had that first encounter with him, but there wasn't a lot of follow-up to the relationship after that. I spent the majority of my middle school and teenage years basically just doing what I felt like. I didn't misbehave. I made good grades. From the outside, I was a good Christian girl, and I did what I was supposed to do, and I went to church every Sunday, and I went every Wednesday night, and I was there for youth. So from the outside looking in, I was a very good Christian girl, but I was not a very good Christian girl at all, really. I think around the age of 11 or 12, I was exposed to pornography for the first time just due to unsupervised internet access. Stumbled across it and liked it a lot. So that led me down the rabbit hole of just finding horrible things on the internet. And I quickly found myself addicted not only to the pornography side of it, but to masturbation as well because of the way that it made me feel about myself. And soon watching videos wasn't enough because I could only do that at a certain time. So I stumbled upon fan fiction where I could basically read at any time things as filthy as I wanted them to be, and then reading it didn't become enough anymore. So I started writing my own because then I could control what the story became. So I went years just living this secret life, hiding it from basically everybody I knew that I was completely addicted to this. It was all I thought about. I daydreamed about sex constantly. It was all I could think about. I think the first time I remember coming into contact somebody that really made me rethink my life choices would be when I first met Apostle Brian. He came on staff at the church that I was going to at the time as the youth pastor, and he kind of did like this introductory lesson, this first interview, and when he looked at me, it was exactly like the woman at the well. I knew that he knew everything that I had done, and I was terrified of having people find out about that. And it didn't help that the first lesson was about what do you see when you look at yourself in a mirror? And then he took this big old mirror and he went around the room and he held it up in front of everybody and kind of just went past them, and I couldn't meet eyes with myself in the mirror because I knew what I had done and I knew he knew what I had done. And I think the first real encounter that I had, we were sitting in the basement of this Baptist church talking about experiences that we'd had with the demonic. So I was sharing things from my childhood that had terrified me at the time. And then one of the people that we're with starts manifesting a demon. I had never seen that before. This demon is literally choking him out because it doesn't want him to be free. So Apostle Brian just kind of took the lead at that point and So we just prayed for this kid until breakthrough happened. That's probably when everything changed at that moment in time. That switched everything for me. I immediately went home, and it was all I could talk about to anybody who would listen for like 2 weeks. I was telling parents, I was telling people I volunteer with, I was telling coworkers, like nobody could shut me up. It was a couple months, and I think I sat down with Apostle Brian and I was like, hey, I know there's stuff attached to me. So I'd like to get rid of that if we could do that. We peeled through the pornography addiction, the masturbation, the abandonment, the generational curses that had been on me, the anger because of just things that happened in my life. We peeled back a lot of layers. So the personal experience of deliverance was really good. And then happened Panama City. We went down with the youth group to Florida, just on a casual youth trip, just to have a fun time. And we didn't really have a grid for what happened or what was going to happen. We were just like, it's gonna be a good time. And first night, I see kids who I've known my whole life start to peel back the layers of the things that have happened to them and the things that they've done. Completely unprompted, people just start confessing things that have happened to them, like rape and addiction and having horrible visions and abortion, and all of this stuff starts coming out. And it's Apostle and the adults that were on the trip, they didn't even have to minister because the kids went and we ministered to each other. It was like the first time that I've seen that much vulnerability in anybody, especially people from my generation, because there's so much of a need to perform and be perfect and pristine, and well, we're church kids, so we have to behave a certain way, we have to act a certain way, even though we're living in depression and suicide and addiction and fear of the future because we don't know what it's going to look like. It was all these kids just start ministering to each other and loving on each other. It was so beautiful, and it was such a strong sense of community. So that happens, and we already knew that the rest of the week was going to be different than we thought it was going to be at that point. So first day comes and goes, second day comes, and worship starts kicking. It was the first time I'd felt the Spirit that powerfully during worship. It was so, so real and so powerful. And then one of the worship leaders starts manifesting as she's singing. And this is the thing that happened with the kid before. That was like a small group of people. And so there wasn't really a need to be like, explain everything. But this is in front of a group of 20 to 30 Baptist kids. And this girl starts manifesting a demon, and not just silently manifesting it. It is screeching. Like, you can't hide a screaming demon. Like, you can't do that. So they kind of just were like, we can't just let her suffer like this. So we dealt with it. And I watched a room full of Baptist kids. Not only were not I won't say not concerned, but they weren't just, they rolled with it. Like, they might not have known what was going on, but they knew that our friend was under attack, and they knew that we needed to pray for her. So we watched the other worship leader just try his best to keep worshiping. A little while later, demon's gone, and we spend the rest of that week just kind of unpacking what just happened. And so many of those kids got set free that week. It was so, so beautiful. It was the most genuine youth camp I've ever been to. There was no politics. There was no side drama. There was no kids sneaking off to do things that they're not supposed to do. And it was one of the most beautiful things. And then coming back, we spent several months just unpacking the book of Acts. Now 2 years later, 2 or 3 years later, I am in a completely different person than I was. No longer in bondage. I am no longer angry and hurt. I no longer struggle with depressive and suicidal thoughts. I no longer struggle with lust. I no longer struggle with looming addictions. And I am now free in every way that I could possibly be. I speak in tongues. I cast out demons. I scream in the spirit. I get drunk in the spirit. I'm Alyssa, and I'm a recovering Baptist.